Hello and welcome. My name is back. My name is back. My name is Alan. We are back with more Diary of Anne Frank. Let's just go ahead and hop straight into this here, shall we? Tuesday, March the 14th, 1944. Dearest Kitty, it might be amusing for you, though not for me, to hear what we're going to eat today. The cleaning lady is working downstairs, so the moment I'm seated at the Vendan's oilcloth covered table with a handkerchief sprinkled with fragment pre-war perfume pressed to my nose and mouth. You probably don't have the faintest idea what I'm talking about, so let me begin at the beginning. The people who supply us with food coupons have been arrested, so we just have our 5 black market ration books. No coupons, no fats and oils. Since Miep and Mr. Kleiman are sick again, Bep can't manage the shopping. The food is wretched, and so are we. As of tomorrow, we won't have a scrap of fat, butter, or margarine. We can't eat fried potatoes for breakfast, which we've been doing to save on bread, so we're having hot cereal instead, and because Mrs. Von Don thinks we're starving, we bought some half and half. Lunch today consists of mashed potatoes and pickled kale. This explains the precautionary measure of the handkerchief. You wouldn't believe how much kale can stink when it's a few years old. The kitchen smells like a mixture of spoiled plums, rotten eggs, and brine. Ugh. Just the thought of having to eat that muck makes me want to throw up. Besides that, our potatoes have contracted such strange diseases that 1 out of every 2 buckets of pommes de terre winds up in the garbage. We entertain ourselves by trying to figure out which disease they've got, and we've reached the conclusion that they suffer from cancer, smallpox, and measles. Honestly, being in hiding during the 4th year of the war is no picnic. If only the whole stinking mess were over. To tell you the truth, the food wouldn't matter so much to me if life here were more pleasant in other ways. But that's just it. This tedious existence is starting to make us all disagreeable. Here are the opinions of the 5 grown-ups on the present situation. Children aren't allowed to have opinions, and for once I'm sticking to the rules. Mrs. Von Don, I'd stopped wanting to be queen of the kitchen long ago, but sitting around doing nothing was boring, so I went back to cooking. Still, I can't help complaining. It's impossible to cook without oil, and all those disgusting smells make me sick to my stomach. Besides, what do I get in return for my efforts? Ingratitude and rude remarks. I'm always the black sheep. I get blamed for everything. What's more, in my opinion, that it is my opinion that the war is making very little progress. The Germans will win in the end. I'm terrified that we're going to starve, and then when I'm in a bad mood, I snap at everyone who comes near me. Mr. Von Don, I just smoke and smoke and smoke. Then the food and the political situation and Curly's moods don't seem so bad. Curly's a sweetheart. If I don't have something to smoke, I get sick, and then I need to eat meat. Life becomes unbearable. Nothing's good, and there's bound to be a flaming row. My Curly's an idiot. Mrs. Frank. Food's not important, but I'd love a slice of rye bread right now because I'm so hungry. If I were Mrs. Von Dun, I'd put a stop to Mr. Von Dun's smoking long ago. But I desperately need a cigarette now because my head's in such a whirl. The Von Duns are horrible people. The English may make a lot of mistakes, but the war is progressing. I should keep my mouth shut and be grateful I'm not in Poland. Mr. Frank. Everything's fine. I don't need a thing. Stay calm. We've got plenty of time. Just give me my potatoes and I'll be quiet. Better set aside some of my rations for Bep. The political situation is improving. I'm extremely optimistic. Mr. Dussel. I must complete the task I've set for myself. Everyone must be finished on time. The political situation is looking good, but it's impossible for us to get caught. Me. Yours, Anne. Thursday, March the 16th, 1944. Dearest Kitty, released from the gloom and doom for a few moments. All I've been hearing today is, if this and that happens, we're in trouble, and if so-and-so gets sick, we'll be left to fend for ourselves, and if, well, you know the rest. And at any rate, I assume you're familiar enough with the residents of the annex to guess what they think they're talking about. The reason for all the ifs is that Mr. Kugler has been called up for a 6-day work detail. Bep is down with a bad cold, and will probably have to stay home tomorrow. Miep hasn't gotten over her flu, and Mr. Kleinman's stomach bled so much he's lost consciousness. What a tale of woe. We think Mr. Kugler should go directly to a reliable doctor for a medical certificate of ill health, which he can present to City Hall in Hilversum. The warehouse employees have been given a day off tomorrow, so Beth will be alone in the office. If there's another if, Beth has to stay home, the door will remain locked and we'll have to be quiet as mice so that the keg company won't hear us. At 1 o'clock, January will come half an hour, or Jan will come half an hour to check on us poor forsaken souls like a zookeeper. This afternoon, for the first time in ages, Jan gave us some news of the outside world. You should have seen us gathered around him. It looked exactly like a print at grandmother's knee. He regaled us, his grateful audience, with talk of, what else? Food. Mrs. P., a friend of Miep's, has been cooking his meals. The day before yesterday, Jan ate carrots and green peas. Yesterday, he had leftovers. Today, she's cooking marrow fat peas. And tomorrow, she's planning to mash the remaining carrots with potatoes. We asked about Miep's doctor. Doctor? Said Jan. What doctor? I called him this morning and got his secretary on the line. I asked for a flu prescription and was told I could come pick it up tomorrow morning between 8 and 9. If you've got a particularly bad case of the flu, the doctor himself comes to the phone and says, stick out your tongue and say, ah. Oh, I can hear it. your throat's infected. I'll write out a prescription and you can bring it to the pharmacy. Good day. And that's that. Easy job, he's got diagnosis by phone, but I shouldn't blame the doctors. After all, a person has only two hands, and these days there's too many patients and too few doctors. Still, we all had a good laugh at Jan's phone call. I can just imagine what a doctor's waiting room looks like these days. Doctors no longer turn up their noses at the poor patients, but at those with minor illnesses. Hey, what are you doing here? They think. Go to the end of the line. Real patients have priority. Yours, Anne. Thursday, March the 16th, 1944. Dearest Kitty, the weather is gorgeous, indescribably beautiful. I'll be going up to the attic in a moment. I now know why I'm so much more restless than Peter. He has his own room where he can work, dream, think, and sleep. I'm constantly being chased from one corner to another. I'm never alone in the room I share with Dussel, though I long to be so much. There's another reason I take refuge in the attic. When I'm there or with you, I can be myself, at least for a little while. Still, I don't want to moan and groan. On the contrary, I want to be brave. Thank goodness for the others notice nothing of my innermost feelings, except that every day I'm growing cooler and more contemptuous of Mother, less affectionate to Father, and less willing to share a single thought with Margot. I'm closed up tighter than a drum. Above all, I have to maintain my air of confidence. No one must know that my heart and mind are constantly at war with each other. Up to now, reason has always won the battle, but will my emotions get the upper hand? Sometimes I fear they will, but more often I actually hope they do. Oh, it's so terribly hard not to talk to Peter about these things, but I know I have to let him begin. It's so hard to act during the daytime as if everything I've said and done in my dreams had never taken place. Kitty, Anne is crazy. But then these are crazy times and even crazier circumstances. The nicest part is being able to write down all my thoughts and feelings. Otherwise, I'd absolutely suffocate. I wonder what Peter thinks about all these things. I keep thinking I'll be able to talk to him about them one day. He must have guessed something about the inner me, since he couldn't possibly love the outer Anne he's known so far. How could someone like Peter, who loves peace and quiet, possibly stand my bustle and noise? Will he be the first and only person to see what's beneath my granite mask? Will it take him long? Isn't there some old saying about love being akin to pity? Isn't that what's happening here as well? Because I often pity him as much as I do myself. I honestly don't know how to begin. I really don't. So how can I expect Peter to when talking to him, when talking is so much harder for him? If only I could write to him, then at least he'd know that I was what I was trying to say, since it is so hard to say it out loud. Yours, Anne M. Frank. Friday, March the 17th, 1944. My dearest darling, everything turned out all right after all. Bep just had a sore throat, not the flu, and Mr. Kugler got a medical certificate to excuse him from the work detail. The entire annex breathed a huge sigh of relief. Everything's fine here, except that Margot and I are rather tired of our parents. Don't get me wrong, I still love Father as much as ever, and Margot loves both Father and Mother, but when you're as old as we are, you want to make a few decisions for yourself, get out from under their thumb. Whenever I go upstairs, they ask what I'm going to do. They won't let me salt my food. Mother asks me every evening at 8:15 if it isn't time for me to change into my nightie, and they have to approve every book I read. I must admit, they're not at all strict about that and let me read nearly everything, but Margot and I are sick and tired of having to listen to their comments and questions all day long. There's something else that displeases them. I no longer feel like giving them little kisses morning, noon, and night. All those cute nicknames seem so affected, and Father's fondness for talking about farting and going to the bathroom is disgusting. In short, I'd like nothing better than to do without their company for a while, and they don't understand that. Not that Margot and I have ever said any of this to them. What would be the point? They wouldn't understand anyway. Margot said last night, "What really bothers me is that if you happen to put your head in your hands and sigh once or twice, they immediately ask whether you have a headache or don't feel well." For both of us, it's been quite a blow to suddenly realize that very little remains of the close and harmonious family we used to be. This is mostly because everything's out of kilter here. By that I mean that we're treated like children when it comes to external matters, while inwardly we're much older than other girls our age. Even though I'm only 14, I know what I want. I know who's right and who's wrong. I have my own opinions, ideas, and principles, and though it may sound odd coming from a teenager, I feel I'm more of a person than a child. I feel I'm completely independent of others. I know I'm better at debating or carrying on a discussion than Mother. I know I'm more objective. I don't exaggerate as much. I'm more tidier and better with my hands, and because of that, I feel, this may make you laugh, that I'm superior to her in many ways. To love someone, I have to admire and respect the person, but I feel neither respect nor admiration for Mother. Everything would be all right if only I had Peter, since I admire him in many ways. He's so decent and clever. Yours, Anne M. Frank. Saturday, March the 18th, 1944. Dearest Kitty, I've told you more about myself and my feelings than I've ever told a living soul, so why shouldn't that include sex? Parents and people in general are very peculiar when it comes to sex. Instead of telling their sons and daughters everything at the age of 12, they send the children out of the room, and the moment the subject arises, and leave them to find everything out on their own. Later on, when parents notice that their children have somehow come by their information, they assume they know more or less than they actually do. So why don't they try and make amends by asking them what's what? A major stumbling block for the adults, though in my opinion it's no more than a pebble, is that they're afraid their children will no longer look upon marriage as sacred and pure once they realize that, in most cases, this purity is a lot of nonsense. As far as I'm concerned, it's not wrong for a man to bring a little experience to a marriage. After all, it has nothing to do with the marriage itself, does it? Soon after I turned 11, they told me about menstruation. But even then, I had no idea where the blood came from or what it was for. When I was 12 and a half, I learned some more from Jackie, who wasn't as ignorant as I was. My own intuition told me that a man and a woman do what a man and a woman do when they're together. It seemed like a crazy idea at first, but when Jackie confirmed it, I was proud of myself for having figured it out. It was also Jackie who told me that children didn't come out of the mother's tummies. As she put it, where the ingredients go in is where the unfinished product comes out. Or where the finished product comes out. Jackie and I found out about the hymen and quite a few other details from a book on sex education. I also knew that you could keep from having children, but how that worked inside your body remained a mystery. When I came here, Father told me about prostitutes, etc., but all in all, there are still unanswered questions. If mothers don't tell their children everything, they hear it in bits and pieces, and that can't be right. Even though it's Saturday, I'm not bored. That's because I've been up in the attic with Peter. I sat there dreaming with my eyes closed, and it was wonderful. Yours, Ann M. Frank. We'll go ahead and end this episode there. So yeah, she's still having issues dealing with the adults. Like I said, her and her sister have come to terms. It's not necessarily that they're the best of sisters or anything, but they understand and accept each other for who they are. So yeah. Looks like we got a little over 100 pages to go in the book, so we're not doing too bad. We're not too far away from the end. But yeah. She discusses trying to survive with the other people in the annex they're cooped up with, so. And of course, that final chapter, she's like, I wish they would be more open and honest. Which, I'll be honest with you, I feel that sex, it's a normal part of life. It should be discussed as, hey, this is what's going to happen. You need to understand it. You need to know it. But there's so many people who are so skittish. Or they're like, I don't think my children need to know this young. They're going to learn it some way or the other. It'd be better if you discussed it with them. But again, but yeah, we're making our way through March of 1944. Like I said, there's a little over 100 pages left of the diary, the book itself. So everything is drawing down to the eventual end. But yeah, you can see she's not, even though this was the 1940s, she's not so different than a lot of young people in the modern age. I don't know why this book, so many people were trying to have it banned and everything. These are great insights into the world. I remember reading Diary of Anne Frank when I was in school. I think it was around 7th or 8th grade. Yeah. We went over a good portion of it in school. I think it was the more annotated version, not the more complete version that this one's supposed to be. It was missing parts. This is supposed to be the most complete form we have, where she goes back and writes in stuff and everything. But yeah. Again, it just gets on my nerves knowing that people would rather ban books than have their child read something and then draw a bit of information off of it. It bothers me. And look, there are books that are not fit for certain age groups. The Diary of Anne Frank, though? No, that's fine. There's just too much of a tendency toward censorship by people. And it's like, no. That kind of behavior doesn't benefit society or people at all. Anyway, we'll go ahead and end this episode here. As always, educate thyself, think, read, study, learn. Someone tells you something you have trouble believing, ask them to cite their sources. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all in the next episode. Until then, later.